Christians like to say,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe some other people, that
Okay.
that the best place to raise a child is in
Mhm.
marriage. I feel like you said this in one
Sure.
of the other episodes.
Sure.
But anyway, why?
Why is it the best place
Yeah.
to raise children?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I could give you all the spiritual reasons, but
Sure.
sure, okay, okay, well, all right, it's the best place, and let me give you some stats, and then we'll talk about the actual
Okay.
spiritual part of it, okay? And so,
I like stats.
you like stats?
Uh-huh.
Okay, and so there are, there's so many of them. I don't hardly even know where to start. So children who do not live with both biological parents are roughly twice as likely to be poor, to have birth outside of marriage, to have behavioral and psychological problems, and to not graduate high school.
Okay.
Another study has found that children in single-parent homes are more likely to experience health problems, such as accidents, injuries, and poisonings. It's kind of an interesting thing.
What?
Yeah, and actually a large part of that is due to this. It's the fact that you have a single parent trying to.
Oh.
So you lose. It's like you're halving your supervision of ability.
Okay.
And so
It's too hard because you're a single parent, so you just poison your child.
no, it's because they can get into stuff,
Oh.
and you don't have enough supervision around it. And then
He got into it. I wasn't
right,
there.
I wasn't there. I have no idea. I'll be honest. Our youngest was like a machine. Being able to unlock, the childproof safety things.
The poison?
Where you keep all the chemical, you keep your cleaning supplies or that kind of stuff. And he would just sit there. He was so little, but he would sit there and find a way to move that thing. And then after the second time, we were like, okay, dude, you're done. Probably should have done that the first time. But yeah, exactly. So, other research found that children living with single mothers were 5 times as likely to be poor. And poverty, actually, just hitting on that one specifically, the percentage, and this is, you're going to hear race in this. So it's both. Percentage of white children living in poverty is 31% in families with only a mother, and it's only 5% in families with a married couple. Okay.
Okay.
And percentages for black children, mother only, it's 45%. Married couple, it's only 12%.
Okay.
And so it's not just even and there's we've talked about the breakdown, I say that there's been a lot of discussion of the breakdown of the nuclear family within the black community, but it's not just there though. It's not just an economic problem or a racial problem, It is a marriage problem.
Okay.
And so when we talk about poverty and those kind of things, it always needs to go back to the breakdown of the nuclear family, not just to their own societal experiences. And I will say this too. If you're a child of a widowed parent, you actually do better than children in families with divorced or cohabitating parents. So in other words,
okay,
let's say if I was to die, my wife's raising our children alone, statistically, they would still be better off than coming from like a divorced home or even 2 individuals cohabitating together.
Okay.
And so children of divorce are 2.5 times as likely to have serious social, emotional, or psychological problems as children from families intact. Children in cohabitating families are at a higher risk of poor outcomes in most, or I won't say most, but in a lot of economic and emotional categories. And so, again, marriage is the issue there. And so I think as you keep going down, you can continue to see over and over again that, children living outside of a nuclear home is just not as healthy. Children living with a mother's boyfriend are about 11 times more likely to be sexually, physically, or emotionally abused than children living with their married biological parents. Children separated from one or both of their biological parents are 1.5 times as likely to experience financial difficulty, 6 times as likely to have witnessed neighborhood violence, 15 times as likely to have witnessed caregiver or parent violence, 11 times as likely to have lived with a caregiver or parent with a drug or alcohol problem, and 17 times as likely to have had a caregiver or parent in jail. And so, and actually, the jail part, boys are half as likely to end up in prison before the age of 30 if they're being raised by their biological parents.
Okay.
And so, and
prison,
not
jail,
prison.
Okay.
And girls are half as likely to be as depressed. And so so in other words, there's a lot of statistical numbers that we can look at and say these are major issues for children that are not being raised by 2 parents in the home.
So why does all that make sense to you, Christian man?
Because I really believe God designed, and again, we're talking about ideal, right?
Okay.
So I think God designed the family to be the safe space for children to be raised in, so children thrive actually on a few things. Children thrive on stability, okay? And stability, when you've got parents that are in a healthy marriage, they're going to be loving their children. There's not going to be the emotional instability that you find in single household. And again, the single household mom, or single household dad, either one, there's the emotional part that's because of the stress that's created from trying to be a parent who's working, who's raising children, all that kinds of by themselves. For those of us that have, we've got 3 kids.
It's just practically, it's harder.
It's harder. And so I
even if nothing else is wrong.
Correct.
Okay.
And so, but you throw on top of that the stress created from whether it's the financial stress or relational stress, things going through a divorce, or those kind of things. It impacts children. And so I think God's design was for the home to be a safe place where children know they're loved, they know they're cared. Because let's face it, you go to school, there's no guarantee you're not going to get bullied, that you're not going to get peer pressure to do things, right? All that exists outside of the home. But if you've got the stability in the home where you know you're loved, you know you're cared for, parents have healthily just invested in you, and I don't mean just resource-wise, I just mean time-wise. They're willing to share in the interest that you have, all those kind of things. It creates this stable environment for children, and children need stability. Children also thrive not just on stability, but on discipline. They actually need discipline. And I think what happens is oftentimes with a single parent, it's exhausting disciplining all the time. We've had this conversation with single parents. It's hard for them when they have to be the loving parent, the disciplining parent. And I'm not saying you divide up those roles when they're married, but unfortunately what can happen is for the single parent, they can fall into the trap, especially as a child hits certain stages of life where they're just kind of having to discipline all the time. And it's they feel like that's their only role. And they don't want to just be disciplining all the time. They want to also be able to love and care and support and those kind of things. And I think it's hard to balance all of that with just the one parent.
Okay.
And so I think that, so discipline is actually really important. And in fact, if we look at Hebrews real quick, and so it says, what son is there that a father does not discipline? This is Hebrews 12, verse 7. What son is, well, I'll back up and I'll read Proverbs. My son, do not take the Lord's discipline lightly, or lose heart when you are reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and disciplines every son he receives. For what son is there that a father does not discipline? But if you are without discipline, which all receive, or they should, but if you're without discipline, then you are illegitimate children and not sons.
Did Jesus get disciplined from his dad?
Did Jesus get disciplined from his dad? Remember when Jesus went off when he was 12 years old, wasn't part of the group, and he had been left at the temple?
Oh, I mean his real dad.
Are you meaning God the Father? Yeah. Did he get disciplined?
Jesus was in a broken home.
What are you talking about?
He wasn't with his real dad.
Oh, Nate, you're killing me right now. You're just
right?
You're killing me. You're absolutely killing me.
I think he did pretty good given the circumstances, though.
Oh my gosh. Okay. But okay, this actually, wow, this just opens up all kind of stuff.
Okay.
All right. What's so unique, I think it's actually a good point. Well, what about Jesus?
Okay.
I think that's a valid point. Let's go there. And so, all right. So obviously Jesus is being raised by his mother, right?
His biological mother.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And then Joseph.
And then some guy.
And then Joseph. But here's the thing. Joseph and Mary were in a healthy marriage.
Okay.
Right? So it was a stable environment. Okay.
Okay.
And I know we can go off into God the Father being present and God the Father being there, other kind of things. But Joseph was charged with raising Jesus. Okay. And
Jesus did end up in jail.
Oh, God. Yes.
And
Nate.
he received the death penalty.
Yes, Nate. Yes, he did.
So.
Oh, Lord.
Add that to the stats.
Add that to the stats. Yeah. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. That's what you just told me to do. All right. Oh, Lord. Obviously, we know Jesus is a completely different category. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Can we go back?
Yeah.
To Hebrews 12. Thank you. All right. And so it says, furthermore, chapter 12, verse 9 of Hebrews, furthermore, we had human fathers discipline us and we respected them. Shouldn't we submit even more to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time based on what seemed good to them, but he does it for our benefit so that we may share his holiness. No discipline seems enjoyable at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. And I think this is kind of the point is like when we have those stable environments and there's discipline present, it actually, no one likes to be disciplined at the time. None of my kids like to be spanked at the time, right? Like, so there's the discipline that's present and there is not enjoyable for the moment. I get it. But for the long-term stability of the child, it actually is for their good. So children thrive on stability and children thrive on discipline. And children thrive in environments where they know they are loved, okay, and where that's expressed.
Okay.
And so both verbally and through action. And so I think that's why when God designed, the family, it was for these things. And therefore, because of these things, you don't see the fallout from the stats like we just read.
Okay.
We're in those environments. And obviously as a Christian, I'm going to add to that not only do we provide this, the safe and environment, stable environment, the disciplined environment, the loving environment, but we also are providing an environment that is pointing them to the Lord, right?
Okay.
Like that we are going to point, that my children can look at me and can look at their mother and say those are examples of individuals that love the Lord and they're setting an example for us. And then one of the things we do is that when we fail, when we don't live up to a standard, when we don't act like Christ, then we ask for forgiveness. And so they learn early that asking for forgiveness is part of the norm, right? Like that we're not perfect. And that's even greater evidence or greater pointing toward the one who is perfect. Like I realize that as stable, disciplined, and loving environments we try to create, we're going to fail. We're going to disappoint. We're going to, not meet expectations and those kind of things. Like, I get that. And so we ask for forgiveness when we don't hit those points. And we point to the one who is perfect, who is our Father, who is always perfect. And so I think that it gives the kids an opportunity to see God being, present here in the midst of the family as well. And so we talk about the Lord, we talk about Jesus, we talk about the Holy Spirit, we talk about the Word. All of these are normal conversation points in our home. And so hopefully those are, creating an environment again where our children are being taught and instructed in the ways of the Lord. That's not only good for them in their knowing and their relationship with Jesus, but hopefully it will be good in both their loving of God and their loving of others, right? So that they actually will be individuals that care more for our society, and they themselves will be in marriages that are healthy, that produce these same type of environments.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So 2 parents.
2 parents.
Any kind of 2 parents will do.
A mom and a dad. A mom and a dad. Yeah.
I almost had you.
Nope. No. Yeah. Mom and a dad.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'll say this too. There are individuals that, because you brought up the whole Jesus thing, being raised by somebody who's not really his biological father.
Yep.
There's plenty of other stats as well, and I'm sorry I don't have them in front of me, that shows what happens when a stable marriage environment is created for a child, where they end up having whether it's a stepfather or a stepmother come in the picture, and now that they have that individuals come in, that there is especially given how, the younger the better, obviously, in most of these cases.
Okay.
But when there's a stable, healthy marriage environment there, it can create some of those same patterns and structures of the stability, the discipline, and the love, right? Now, but all of these things are different depending on what's happening with the divorced, parent. Because those environments could be completely unstable, not disciplined, not loving, and yet the child is kind of, I've seen it both ways. I've seen it where the child is in this environment that's very safe and secure, steady, disciplined, where the step parent doesn't have much involvement with the other parent, that's very unstable. And because they're here, they're okay. It's stable, it's good. And actually all the indications of things we talked about begin to be produced in their own lives. Okay?
Okay.
But then you've got the other side where that may come in, a healthy marriage is created, but you have a very unstable, undisciplined, unloving environment over here, and the child is going back and forth between the two, and that child, unfortunately, is part of the stats we talk about with broken homes, where it really impacts the psychological, emotional health of that child, and so and that's why we see some of the indications that we see. Yeah, of why broken homes are obviously not as beneficial on a numerous amount of key stats as the nuclear family that's there, that is very stable, and you're being raised by both a mom and dad who care for each other and care for the kids. So,
okay,
yeah.
So you're not going to talk about the other thing I brought up.
Oh. With the two, you talking about with the other? I can. You want me to?
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I
it's marriage.
It's marriage, not.
It is on paper according to the government.
It is on paper according to the government. It is not in the eyes of the Lord.
Okay.
And so yes, whether it's 2 men or 2 women, and they're raising children, I'm just, that's not as, and it's not as stable, it's not as disciplined, it's not as secure of a space for those children.
Okay.
And here's why. It's not because, and this is the thing, it's not even because the 2 parents don't love the children. They can love the children well. I'm not denying that. Okay. And I'm not saying they're not even trying to create a safe space or a disciplined space. But there are reasons that fathers typically end up doing the disciplining, okay, in a marriage. All right,
scarier and bigger.
It's scarier and bigger. But I think it's also part of the role that we have. And this kind of gets back to what we were talking about a couple episodes ago about, are there different roles in marriage? And this is part. And I'm not saying that the moms don't discipline either. Obviously, my wife has disciplined our children plenty of times as well. But the discipline part from a father to a child is to me so unbelievably important. And I think that's why you find throughout Scripture, when it speaks of a child being disciplined, it's connected to the father.
Okay.
Disciplining the child.
Oh, so you just read that verse about
Right.
that.
I read the verse here, and then same thing, whether we're looking in Ephesians 6 or whether we're looking, in Colossians 4. It says in Ephesians 6, honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you, that you may have a long life in the land. Fathers, don't stir up anger in your children, but bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. So it's clearly speaking to fathers about how they are to discipline their children. And I'm sorry, I said Colossians 4. It's actually at the very end of Colossians 3. And so same thing, it says, verse 20 of Colossians 3, children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. Fathers, do not exasperate your children so that they won't become discouraged. And so again, it's connecting the idea of disciplining with the father.
Okay.
And we see this in the Proverbs as well. And again, I just think there's that point where the father is able to discipline in a way, and it just comes across and connects with children in a way that it doesn't with the mom. And this is one of the roles that fathers, especially when they're not there, they're advocating that, And so when you have a two-parent home when it's both women, you're absent of that father.
Okay.
Creating that disciplining environment. And then when you've got just the two men, now we're losing. You may have that, but now you're losing that nurturing environment.
Okay.
And so both sides create a lack of instability, and so therefore it negatively impacts. I think probably the verdict is still out in terms of what that's going to look like long term in children and being raised in these environments, and in these homes. But I do think that there's, again, for me as a Christian, it's just a no-brainer that God designed and wired men and women in different ways. And so therefore, when we're raising children, we're doing it in a complementary way together. And we lose that when it's a same-sex union that is raising children.